Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive, or if you think like one, and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve extraordinary results. And no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. Silke Zschweigert is the CEO of Jonckers, which is a leading translation services provider. She took over the CE role about 18 months ago, and she came with a really clear vision. She saw that they had an artificial intelligence platform which they were using internally, and she could see the potential of absolutely transforming the business if she was to take that platform and expose it externally. So she comes with very clear vision to the business, and we have a great conversation. She's a very fascinating lady, brings a lot of wisdom, and she talks about how she moves from her corporate role where she was really enjoying herself, and yet she decided to reinvent herself and take on the CEO role in a smaller, higher growth company. She talks about how she secured that role, the three factors you need to bear in mind if you want to grab the CEO seat. And she talked about the surprises of that journey. What was it that surprised her? She was already a highly experienced executive, and yet there were still some aspects of the CEO role which were new to her, or which she didn't quite realize the weight that would put on her shoulders. So it's really great conversation with Silke. I do hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the world of Jonckers and artificial intelligence in the translation world. Hi, Silke, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard. Nice to meet you, and thank you for the invitation.
No, I'm really looking forward to this. You're the CEO of Jonckers, which looks like it's really pioneering artificial intelligence-based translation service and platform. And I know you've moved into that just over the last year or so, perhaps 2 years. So I'm really looking forward to understanding a bit about that learning curve, right? How's it been from going in from perhaps the corporate world where you had kind of very high level roles, into taking the full ownership, if you like, of this fast growing business. So let's just start by perhaps just give me a bit of your background. What was the story of your brief story up to that CEO role, and then tell us a bit about Jonckers. What interested you in that company?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I'm Silke Zschweigert, CEO of Jonckers at the moment. Originally I'm from Belgium, even though I have a German name, but I've been living in Germany for the past 20 years. My mother is German, my husband is German, hence also the German last name. I moved to Germany over 20 years ago, and from my education, I have a master's degree in translation for Dutch, English, German, and Chinese.
Wow, that's I was going to say only in Belgium, but then you slipped in the Chinese, so that's an impressive mix.
And so I always wanted to work in an international environment, not as a translator, but the international environment was really important to me. So in '99, I joined a company called Outnet at the time as a project manager. And so my career has really started in that customer service. Before that, I was a travel guide in China, so already working with customers. So the project management step was kind of more into that direction, customer service. Very soon after that, I became a team lead. And then around 2003, when our company got acquired by another company called STL, I became the managing director of Germany. So that was my first real management experience of being the managing director of one country within a global organization. At that time, I was 27. And then since then, I had several international roles on an EMEA level first, both commercial, but also operational. And then in 2016, I became the chief delivery officer, where I was responsible at STL for 2,500 employees in 38 countries. So really exciting times. And in 2018, I decided to close that chapter. And my friends told me it was my midlife crisis. How can you leave a job that you actually love?
Well, I want to just add into this. I mean, I think it's proactive of you, right? Sometimes people wait until they get into this phase of stagnation and even defensiveness because they feel, oh, perhaps I'm a bit too old in this role, I'm a bit too long, I'm a bit too expensive, but I'm going to hang on in there. And I think actually when it's still good, it's a fantastic moment to reinvent yourself. I like to say to my clients, with a bit of my tongue in cheek, as I want to do, I'll say, you need a Madonna moment. And a Madonna moment is that moment, when she like reinvented herself and came out with a, with a new look or whatever. And it's like almost every major rock or pop artists, either they got to go for the nostalgia thing, like they never change, but pretty much like all the ones who have really innovated, they reinvent themselves, and perhaps they create that period of uncertainty, but then they manage to bring their old self into their new self. And I think it's that's the game. I think that's exponential.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to start using that. I had my Madonna moment. That's really good. And after the Madonna moment, it was really like, okay, what do I want from here? I went into consulting a little bit, worked a lot with private equity firms who wanted to explore the language market. And then I bumped into Jonckers as a company, where I got really excited about their technology platform. And it was kind of me moving from, as you mentioned before, from that big corporate environment, at least in our space, to a much smaller company, but where I just saw a lot of potential in really making the platform that they already have, like the global platform for continuous localization. And so if you say, what is it that Jonckers does? That's exactly what we do. So basically, Jonckers is a tech-enabled language company that provides enterprises like Amazon or Microsoft with solutions to make sure that they can bring their products to the global market. So we help them to go faster, more cost-effective, and obviously at a high quality. So that's in a nutshell what we do at Jonckers.
Yeah, perfect. And out of interest, what attracted you to that? What in that got you excited and made you want to jump in?
It's a very good question. So I kind of made a list for myself at the time. What is it that you really want to get out of your next job, your next position? And I came up with 3 criteria that were really important to me. One was that I wanted to stay in a technology-driven environment. The other one was that it definitely had to be an international company because that's my DNA, that's where I came from, that's what I love. But the third factor I realized was really important to me, and it's I wanted to have fun. Because I think, work hard, play hard has always been my motto, and everyone who has worked with me in the past 20 odd years knows that.
Yeah.
And I want to work with nice people who can have a bit of fun. And obviously work hard as well, but those were my 3 points.
Yeah, perfect. And then within the kind of the actual opportunity within Jonckers, what was it that kind of made you go, yeah, it's tech, it's international, it's fun, and it's actually got potential, right? What was the potential that you saw?
The potential for me was really the platform. When I started talking to the people who actually developed the platform, I remember saying, okay, I've been in the language industry for more than 20 years. I worked within the top 3, or within a company within the top 3. I've never heard of Words Online, which is the platform. How come?
Right.
And so,
greatest secret.
Exactly. Why doesn't anyone else know about it? And it turned out that they had developed this magnificent platform, but they had used it only internally for efficiency purposes. And that's where I just saw the big opportunity saying, okay, it's not fair to only use it for your biggest client, for their continuous localization. We need to bring this to market and make sure that other companies can also benefit of this.
Right.
And so that's really the journey that we've taken to really go, on the one hand, is move ourselves from being a pure language service provider to really become the language platform for enterprises who go global.
Yeah, great. So I love it, Silke, because you're bringing out this kind of guiding vision, right? The kind of the one shift that you could perhaps see to make as a CEO. So let me ask you, before you had a lot of, you started off in project management, you said you became chief delivery officer, so very heavy operational focus by the sound of it. Looking back, what were the biggest factors that helped you secure the CEO role, which obviously is a broader remit? How did you kind of expand your game?
I think it's three main components. It's kind of vision, experience, and credibility. And let me just explain what I mean by that. So obviously, the vision that I just explained to you, I think that's what I want is clear, is to transform Jonckers from being that typical language service provider into becoming the global platform. I think that really was exciting for the shareholders to get someone who really wanted to do that. I mean, we use our AI platform and our managed community to really break down or remove language barriers. And I think that's key in today's world that is so global. So having that vision was definitely an important part of that decision. The fact that I had the experience in the sense that I had already worked in the language industry for 20 years. I had filled several commercial and operational roles at one of the top 3 players. I'm sure that played an important role. Also, the fact that I had experience in the tech space, that I had gone through several acquisitions and was partly responsible for the integration of those. So those are kind of, I had managed global teams. So this is the pure experience part that was definitely a key factor. And then the third part is credibility, which obviously goes hand in hand with experience. But I didn't mention, obviously, I didn't mention the fact that I'm a female CEO. As a female CEO, you kind of have to double prove your credibility. Like, how do you deal with male managers? How do you deal with male customers? How do you deal with being a mother and a CEO? It's kind of all these questions that no one really dares to ask, but it's in everyone's
head. Anywhere, right?
Exactly. So the fact that I had proven all these points throughout my career, I'm sure has also played an important role. So it's really those 3 things. It's vision, experience, and credibility, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, really clear. So you got into the role in, I think, July 2020, I think you said.
Yeah.
So kind of 18 months ago. What's been the biggest surprise? You probably had some expectations about what it would mean to be CEO. How did the reality surprise you?
Well, I always thought once I'd be a CEO, I would come into my beautiful office, I would put my feet on the desk, take my newspaper, and that would be it, right? No, that wasn't the case.
That wasn't quite the case. Yeah.
No, seriously. It's not really a surprise, but more of a realization that I had. And it's the impact that you constantly have on people as a CEO. And this impact goes very much hand in hand with responsibility. So, the fact that every decision you make has an impact on someone. It can be positive or negative, but it can have an impact on your people and their families. Yeah. It can have an impact on your suppliers and their families, or potentially their companies. Can have an impact on customers. So in this regard, always finding that balance between taking decisions for the wellness of the company and, on the other hand, making sure that you take the right decisions for the long-term well-being of the people that you're working with. I think that was my biggest realization kind of in this role.
It's Richard here with a quick interlude. As part of my coaching and advisory work, I often work with leaders who have recently taken on the CEO role. It's a big leap from the comfort zone of functional leadership or business unit management. And it opens up a whole new set of stakeholders, pressures, decisions, and responsibilities. I found that there are 3 key things that will make a huge difference in those first quarters. Number 1, balancing the operational and the strategic, what I call CEO focus. Number 2, establishing credibility, what I call CEO presence. And number 3, managing stakeholders, those CEO conversations. I've written a short email series that goes into more detail on the transition to CEO and how you can practically sharpen your CEO focus, solidify your CEO presence, and master your CEO conversations. It's insightful and it's entirely free of charge, and you can register for it by going to xquadrant.com/go/curve. Now, back to the conversation. Yeah, because I guess as CEO, you have all these different, sometimes conflicting stakeholder interests, right? And there's no easy answer as to how you balance those, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think I can understand that. It's interesting you talk about decisions. One of my CEO clients who were having discussion around decision making and where you should put his focus, and I just say actually you have to be really, really clear about what decisions are actually yours as CEO to take, because it's easy to there's all sorts of things you can pretty much decide on anything, but every time you make a decision, you're probably stepping on somebody else's toes. Either because it's their functional responsibility to decide, or because two functions should be getting together and figuring out what they want to do together. And
you have no one else to blame, right? So when you're in another position in the company, you always have this CEO to blame for whatever is happening. So that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it's that great point. I mean, CEO is about taking ultimate responsibility in a sense, right? There is nowhere else at that point. You have to you have to take it. For me, that's almost the definition of CEO. I think it's when you have that ultimate responsibility, and I think that's why I see as well most of my CEO clients are spending their time saying, how do I get everybody else to take this high level of personal responsibility and ownership, right? Because that's the CEO mindset that you want to kind of replicate.
Yeah. True.
So, okay, so yeah, what else what other surprises came along? Anything else that struck you?
Not really surprises, and I mean, obviously there's like daily surprises, but those are what I would say is more tactical. I guess because I had already been in senior roles before, the responsibility, the team management, the decision making, etc., was not that new. For me, it was really that realization of impact that was again not a surprise, but kind of a whoa, okay, this is
it really landed
serious.
Yeah, perfect. So you've been over this 18 months as a CEO. What advice would you now give for other new CEOs if they were coming on board to a new company, taking the reins? What would your tips be for them?
Definitely, I mean, I think this is a typical answer, but it is important. Have a clear vision for what you're going to be doing over the next couple of years. Make sure that it's clear, but also make sure that you share it with the team. Make sure that people in the organization know about the vision, that they understand the vision, which is different to saying that they agree to the vision. That's the next step, but kind of make sure that it's clear, so that you can ensure that everyone runs in the same direction. I just said it's not the same as that everyone agrees. I think this is also a very good and important opportunity to give to the people who don't agree with your vision to start looking for an alternative, because it is important that everyone stands behind the company vision. So I would say that's my number one. Make sure that you have a clear vision and you talk about it. The second one is ask questions. It's almost like some people or some senior people think they need to know everything.
Yes.
And so it's not okay to ask questions because I should probably know this. I definitely do not agree with that. I think you have to ask questions, and it will actually build trust with the people, and it will also create credibility because it means you have a personal interest in what the people are doing. And it actually gives you valuable input to put in your transformation plan if that's the objective that you have. So asking questions is crucial.
Well, it's interesting. One of my clients found out that the person he felt was asking the most difficult questions was actually the most engaged, even though initially he thought, oh, this person's not on board with my plan because he's asking all these difficult questions. He doesn't believe it's going to work. but actually it was the most engaged executive he had on his team.
Yeah. So that's actually my third point. So the first one is to have a clear vision. The second one is ask questions, but the third one is communicate. Right. Because if you communicate, you also encourage people to ask questions, and so you will actually get to know your team, and you'll always have those people you just mentioned, who ask lots of difficult questions, or people who are very silent. But communication, both inwards, I would say, is very important towards employees, etc., but also outwards. Make sure you're in touch with customers very quickly, with your suppliers, to really make sure you understand kind of how's your company seen by the rest of the world? What are the positives? What are the things that you could improve as a company? I found that really useful doing that early on, because again, you're the one who can ask silly questions also towards the customer, because you're new.
Yes.
So that's great. Really valuable.
Yeah, it's a great point, actually. Make the most of being new, right? Don't see it as a negative, but actually use it as, hey, I'm new, I'm fresh, let me ask the stupid questions. I think as a consultant, I've made most of my career out of asking stupid questions, right? And actually, I think to say, you talked about asking questions and not being afraid to ask questions. One thing I noticed, because I've coached execs of many different levels, and I find that my CEO coaching clients are the ones who I have to slow down the most when I ask them something, because they feel they always need to have a response, because it's become second nature, because everyone's always asking them things all the time. And it's very easy. I ask them quite a challenging question potentially, but they're immediately on to saying something. And I have to kind of call them down, say, slow down a bit. You don't need to prove anything in this moment. What's actually going on? And to get them to process a bit more, because as I said, the operational reality of many CEOs is they have to have answers all the time just to kind of get through all the pulls on their time.
Yeah.
And so I think it also relates into not always feeling you have to have the answers.
Exactly.
But live in a bit of that space where you don't quite know. It's okay.
And I think it's fine to say, well, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. It can just actually surprising people. It can knock them out of their own habits as well, right? If your employees expect you to know all the time, then you say, I don't know. That wakes them up as well in a good way. Pattern interrupt. Okay, so really helpful. So share the vision, ask questions, and then communicate inwards and outwards, and ask those silly questions as well to kind of make the most of that newness. I think those are great tips. Let's kind of move into our little quickfire questions here. It's always good to ask about favorites and things that have shaped you as a person and as a leader. So what's the favorite quote or motto that you like to live by or lead by?
I like it always seems impossible until it's done, from Nelson Mandela. I think it's a very good quote, which is true. And it's just one of the things that, change management process, it's very useful to have that one. Because I think we all know it's the standard answer. If you want to change something, it's like, oh, no, that's not possible. Yeah, we've always done it that way.
Absolutely. What about a favorite app? Is there some app on your phone that really adds value to you in a surprising way, or just your go-to?
I'll give you a really surprising answer, because it's not a high level cultural app or anything like that, but WhatsApp and Facebook really add value to my personal life, because for me it's the medium I stay in touch with my friends around the world. And so without having to pick up the phone to everyone every time, I can kind of make sure that people are aware what I'm doing and I'm aware what they're doing, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So a non-business answer there, but it's definitely, I would say, the most used apps on my phone.
Yeah, used apps on your phone. Yeah, absolutely.
Besides Outlook, that's not a favorite.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? All these apps, like, they add value, but we also want to get out of them a lot. It's a love-hate relationship, I think.
Yeah, you don't want to spend your life in them, that's for sure. That's true.
Yeah. So what about a book? Is there a book that's really influenced you on your journey?
There is a book, it's a small book, but I read it quite early on in my career, and I must say it had a big impact on me, and it's Who Moved My Cheese from Spencer Johnson.
Oh, yes.
And at the time, my manager actually gave it to me because we were in the middle of a change management process. And so it really kind of opened my eye that, I don't know whether you've read it, but it's about mice who are in a oh God, what's the English word now? Like a labyrinth,
Yeah,
a
maze, yeah.
And they kind of they always do the same thing and they can't find it anymore. And so it's like, well, how do you change the way of thinking so you actually get to where you want to go?
Right.
And it's, for me, it's a very simple but very valuable book.
Okay, yeah, I've seen it. I've never read it, so perhaps I should dig it out one of these days.
It's very thin, so you'll have it done within an hour.
Okay, so what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Oh God, that's a difficult one. Interestingly enough, I wouldn't change anything. So I think the advice would just be, you can do whatever you want if you really want it. I think that would be the advice.
Yeah. Last question is it's just really around who inspires you. Many of our best guests on the show come from referrals, right? So I'm always keen to know, who's an impactful CEO, who's perhaps impacted your career in some way. Somebody that could be another great guest for the show. Does anybody come to mind?
I'm sure there's lots of people, but if I really think of inspiration and where I think, wow, this guy just keeps amazing me, I would need to reach out to someone like Elon Musk. I just find it unbelievable how visionary this guy is, and almost crazy at times. But really trying to create vision and creating value for the world, that's really amazing. So if you can get him on your interview show, that would
go. Yeah. I'm sure. How hard can it be? How hard can it be?
Just a phone call away, right?
My challenge. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. I was writing an email today for my newsletter, explaining how to get an invitation with Bill Gates, how to get a meeting with Bill Gates, and it actually happened. I went to a meeting. There were 100 people in the room, and the host said, "Has anyone got a big ask for this community?" So we put the hand up and said, "I'd like an intro to Bill Gates, please." 5 people put their hands up because he made a better ask than I just made, but that was his ask. But he gave the rationale. He explained why it was important, and people got what he was up to, and there were a few people there who could actually get him closer to that inner circle. So it was amazing, because the conference organizer said to me afterwards, I was completely wanted to die when the guy said this, because I was like, this is going to destroy my whole point, because this was too audacious, too big a goal. So I'll just put it out there, right? If anybody on this, any listener knows how we can get Elon Musk on the show, that would be great. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Hey, Silke, this has been great. Let me ask about the future as we kind of wrap up, because no matter how much we've achieved, there's always a next level to get to. And as you know, that's what kind of excites me. So where do you go here as a business? What's next for Jonckers?
Well, watch this space, I would say. As a business, we will definitely expand enormously over the next couple of years. We want to become the platform for continuous localization. And so any company that brings their products and their content to global markets in many languages quickly, they will work with us. So that's where we are going.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. And I say you've already set out that vision of really making the platform front and center. Let me ask you, how's your own leadership going to need to change? What's your stretch? What's going to take you out of your comfort zone as you lead the company to these new heights?
What's my stretch? Kind of have stretches every day. I think that's what keeps me going, is that I keep learning every day. There's something new, something I haven't done. So it's kind of like a continuous learning process there. My current stretch that would definitely have a big impact on my time is I desperately need to start really looking for a CFO to help me to bring the company to the next level. So that's my current challenge, but it's like, this is a continuous process. Every day there is new challenges, new stretches. So for me, that's a process that is ongoing, and that's what keeps me going as well.
Yeah, I love that. It's a continuous journey, as we said, reinventing ourselves from time to time, and pushing ourselves, not because we have to, but because we want to, actually, and because we want to
Absolutely
have more impact. Well, Silke, it's been great to talk to you. It's been really fascinating to get a glimpse into Jonckers, into this view of this platform for artificial intelligence for localization, and for just some of the sharing. Thank you for sharing, just so honestly, some of those learnings from your first months as CEO. So
you're very welcome. Very welcome. It was lovely to speak to you, Richard, and I look forward to that interview with Elon Musk.
Speak soon. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level? If you're ready to learn more about our content, our coaching, and our community, then visit us at xquadrant.com.